for me, winning was all that mattered. I'd rather cheat and win than not win.
Jamie Carragher, a rare, often misunderstood figure, a one-club man, a prominent voice of the game, a superstar in many senses. But to me, there's something about him that sets him apart from so many of his contemporaries and colleagues of his time. He doesn't feel like a superstar, does he? He seems aware of what football has given him, what the game means to the masses, and where he fits into it all. Of course, that's not to say he's not guilty of being either out of touch, boisterous, or simply incorrect with his actions or words, throwing objects at spectators, spitting on children, and angering the entire African continent on things he would appreciate staying in the memory of the footballing community. He also seems like a person that often forgets there's a camera and microphone pointed at him. When it comes to his actual footballing career, a penchant for own goals will quickly be pointed out by many of his detractors. With 7 own goals in the Premier League, he unfortunately has scored more than twice as many times in his own net than in the opposition's. Now, putting that aside, we have an exceptionally successful individual here, a prominent part of Anfield's furniture for 17 years and a serial winner. There's a reason Didier Drogba labeled him as the toughest defender he's come up against. Having said that, when it comes to guys like this, there is always a chilling dark side to the success. Carragher was obsessed with winning, and according to him, this obsession landed him in deep mental crises time and time again, to the point where he was almost past the point of no return. Today, we deep dive into the story of a pundit everyone loves to hate, a player everyone loves to meme, and a personality that nobody can ignore. Born in 1978 in Bootle, just 6 miles north of Anfield, Jamie Carragher came into the world fighting, literally. He was born with an intestinal defect that required immediate surgery as a newborn, but faith seems to have intervened. His mother was a devout Catholic, suffering 2 miscarriages before being pregnant with him. She refused to consider termination even when doctors expressed these complications to her. He wasn't going down that easily. Having just fought through his first battle, soon after, Carragher entered into another, a different kind of fight, an internal conflict between red and blue. His dad was an Evertonian, a proper Evertonian. He named his son Jamie Lee Duncan Carragher, after Everton player Duncan McKenzie and manager Gordon Lee. Funnily enough, on the very same day Jamie Carragher was born, Gordon Lee dropped Duncan McKenzie from the starting lineup in a match versus Middlesbrough in the FA Cup. Everton lost 3-2. Perhaps, some subtle foreshadowing. Nonetheless, Carragher grew up blue as they come, attending matches and idolizing the Toffees. The streets of Bootle shaped him, and Merton Villa, his local kids team, was where whispers began. That kid, he might have something. When other kids played to enjoy the game, Carragher played like he had something to prove. Even at 8 or 9 years old, he tackled harder, ran further, shouted louder. He embodied the classic English player, strength coupled with an insatiable work rate. So no surprise, by 1988, at just 10 years old, Carragher joined Liverpool School of Excellence, trading in his Everton blue for Liverpool red. But, he was still an Everton fan. He turned up to training with an Everton kit underneath his tracksuit, saying it was for comfort. Even years later, when asked about it, he admitted, "Yeah, I was a blue, but I'm a red now, a real one." His commitment to the color transition is made even more believable as he actually joined Everton's academy a year after joining Liverpool, looking to fulfill that childhood itch, I guess, but then returned to Liverpool due to the higher quality of coaching. And just so we're on the same page here, this was the heyday of Merseyside. In the 80s, Liverpool and Everton combined for 8 of the 10 First Division titles. Between 84 and 87, the top of the table was exclusively the city of Liverpool. Now, of course, Liverpool Football Club were the most successful side, but the other side wasn't too bad either. And without a European ban, who knows what that Everton side could have accomplished on a continental level. Carragher started off as a forward, moved into midfield, then slowly, almost reluctantly, into defense as coaches searched for his best position. It wasn't a glamorous transition. He didn't love it at first, but defending came naturally. Carragher didn't want to win, he needed to. And in defense, that kind of desperation gets rewarded. The 1996 FA Youth Cup was where his defensive ability truly began to shine, captaining a side that wasn't particularly brilliant, unless you count Michael Owen, who was. Owen was made of goals, and as per his PhD dissertation, give it a read, it's actually really good, he explained to us all how he pulled it off.
When they don't score, they hardly ever win.
Stop laughing. He's not wrong. Liverpool won that Youth Cup over a Frank Lampard and Rio Ferdinand-led West Ham, and it was off to the races from there. As is usually the case with exceptional players at a youth level, the further you get, the higher the skill level of those around you. Carragher wasn't the most naturally gifted player, especially in relation to some of the others around him, the Owens, the Gerrards. But what he had that most did not was drive. He was a true student of the game, hanging on every word from coaches and the like, never being one to let the crowd get in the way of fulfilling his ambitions. That fire, guided by good coaching in Steve Highway and more, prepared Carragher to take the next leap into the Liverpool first team. In early 1997, thanks to some first team illnesses, he got his chance and repaid that faith, a first team start. Liverpool were up 2-0 when he rose in the box and headed home his first league goal, a moment of magic right in front of the Kop. But listen, I don't want to give you the wrong idea. This was the only goal he ever scored at Anfield in the league and was only one of 3 goals that he ever scored in the Premier League. But he stuck on the Hunter card once and never again. In this game, he started alongside Jamie Redknapp in the midfield, which highlights why Carragher went on to have the career that he had. An upbringing that included playing in all the different positions put him in a position where he was just simply too useful. Managers loved him because he could play anywhere. Fullback? Done it. Centre-back? Fine. Midfield? If you must. Sadly though, during these formative years, Liverpool were in a bit of a slump, falling some places behind Manchester United, Arsenal, Blackburn, and Newcastle. The star players were dubbed the Spice Boys for a perceived love of glamour over goals. Robbie Fowler and Steve McManaman stood front and center as the main figureheads. Supremely talented, supremely unsuccessful. I understand it though. This was essentially the first group of players that began to see truly life-changing wealth flow into the game, just before the group of players that began to see generation-changing money flow into it. I imagine it was very easy to lose the plot. Carragher was too young to be lumped into this group, but Liverpool as a club felt the effects of the era. A turning point came with the arrival of Gerard Houllier in 1998. Houllier, a disciplinarian Frenchman, sought to transform Liverpool's culture from the Spice Boys days to a more professional, continental approach. Carragher thrived and grew at an accelerated rate under Houlier's tutelage. I always felt close to Gerard, praising the manager for the faith shown in him. Indeed, Houllier trusted Carragher's work ethic and tactical discipline. In the 1998-99 season, Carragher made 44 appearances, a hefty number for a 20-year-old. And by the season's end, he was voted Liverpool's Player of the Year by the supporters. And yet, Carragher's early years also saw their share of growing pains. 11 September 1999, Manchester United. On that day, Carragher, playing centre-back, scores twice two own goals in a 2-3 defeat at Anfield. And from that point on, Houllier didn't actually play him as a centre-back for the remainder of his time with Liverpool. The man left the coaching position at the club 5 years later, in 2005. But that doesn't mean that he held anything against Carragher. The man never played less than 40 games a year throughout this entire period. He just wasn't played at centre-back, rather being deployed in the full-back positions. Even still, going back to those own goals against United, it was a humiliation, one that fans and tabloids loved, one that most young defenders wouldn't come back from. As I've alluded to in the video thus far, Carragher was exceptionally hard on himself, so episodes like this clearly affected him deeply. Nonetheless, the man didn't hide. He just went back to work. And shortly after that, in 2001, Carragher picked up a rare treble. FA Cup, League Cup, UEFA Cup, mostly playing as a left back. The man had no significant pace. He wasn't the best progressive ball player and lacked the athleticism that was expected of fullbacks even back then. But he played there anyway and did a job. because that's what he did, whatever the team needed. The Scouser, who wore an Everton kit to training, had become indispensable at Anfield. But just as things were settling, the fire inside flickered a bit too bright. 27 January 2002, FA Cup match at Highbury. A coin flies from the Arsenal stands and hits Carragher on the back. He turns, spots the culprit, picks up the coin and returns the kind donation with interest. Red card, immediate apology, public backlash. I regret what happened at Highbury because I let the club, the fans, my teammates and myself down. I was frustrated and did it without thinking in the heat of the moment. The FA, noting his remorse, spared him a misconduct charge, though police gave him a formal warning. He called it a moment of madness. The press called it worse. But the moment stuck, not because of the incident itself. Players have done worse, but because it exposed something, a flash of temper that, for better or worse, was always close to the surface. And of course, this wouldn't be the only time an unsavory reaction was drawn out of him by spectators. To make matters worse, depending on if you believe in fate, the domino effect, or anything else, this incident triggered the most difficult period in his career. He suffered 2 serious injuries that tested his resolve. First, a knee problem in 2002 required surgery and ruled him out of England's World Cup squad that year. Then, in 2003, a reckless tackle by Blackburn's Lucas Neal left Carragher with a broken leg, sidelining him for months. During these injury absences, Liverpool brought in reinforcements such as John Arnorisa, Steve Finnan, and more, casting some doubt on Carragher's place in the team. The papers were consistently making reference to all those ahead of him in the Liverpool pecking order. Instead, he was reassured of his place, being named vice-captain to Steven Gerrard and returning to the squad just in time to win the 2003 League Cup. And soon after came the prime of Carragher's career, a period inspired by a certain Spaniard with a love for facts.
I am talking about facts.
The arrival of Rafael Benitez as manager of Liverpool in the summer of 2004 marked the dawn of a new chapter in Carragher's career. Benitez, a tactically astute Spaniard, saw in Carragher the qualities of a top-class centre-back, but more importantly, a maturity to accept the gravity of the role. Almost immediately, Benitez moved Carragher from fullback into the heart of defense, alongside Sami Hyypiä, making this the first choice pairing for the 2004-05 season. Carragher responded with the season of his life. He made 56 appearances in all competitions that year, in Iron Man feat. In reality, it was the cerebral side of Carragher's game, the organizational ability, intelligence, concentration, and anticipation that allowed him to thrive under Benitez's tactical system. And it all came together spectacularly in Liverpool's remarkable run to the 2005 UEFA Champions League title. Carragher's performances en route to the final were colossal. Intense knockout ties against Juventus and Chelsea, he delivered what some consider his finest ever performances, stopping absolutely every threat with the grit you'd expect of the man. And then came the biggest night of his life, the day of the greatest final in Champions League history, 25 May 2005, Liverpool vs AC Milan, Istanbul. On that night in the Ataturk Olympic Stadium, Carragher achieved immortality. The Champions League final that year has since passed into legend. Liverpool trailed 0-3 at halftime to a Milan side of superstars that are mythical by today's standards. Then came the miracle. Liverpool roared back to 3-3 in a 6-minute blitz early in the second half, sending the match to extra time. Carragher's legs give out, cramp in both of them, but he keeps going. He keeps diving, blocking, shouting, leading. This tackle on Shevchenko, while practically crawling, has gone down in folklore. He doesn't take a penalty, but he didn't need to, as he had already done enough. The miracle of Istanbul.
I can't believe it. I cannot believe that we've just won.
I'd plummeted to the deepest pit of misery, only to instantly recover to ascend the highest of peaks. No footballer fancies a sneak preview of the most humiliating defeat in sporting history, but having staged a comeback that will echo in eternity, none of us would want it any other way. Carragher was referring to the team as a whole in this quote, but it's hard not to see the similarities between the fall and rise of this match and connect it to his own journey, from fringe Liverpool player without a position, falling out of favour in embarrassing fashion, and then reaching the promised land and being immortalised. And for that, he earned a 20th place Ballon d'Or finish in 2005, notably tied with one Cristiano Ronaldo. Oh, and by the way, I had to fight every fibre of my being to not name this video when Jamie Carragher was better than Cristiano Ronaldo. So I'm expecting at least one thank you in the comments. Also subscribe. The following year brought more success. In May 2006, Carragher appeared in yet another major final, the FA Cup final against West Ham United, his 10th cup final in 10 seasons as a Liverpool player. He wasn't wrapped in as much glory here, scoring an own goal in a pulsating 3-3 draw. Luckily, Steven Gerrard wasn't about to let his team lose this one, delivering an all-time great individual performance. But this over here is yet another case of Carragher's obsession with his own particularly high standards getting to him. On the bus after the win, Liverpool were parading the FA Cup trophy around the city. Carragher was away from the team, moping in the bus. His own poor performance did not allow him to enjoy the moment. Nonetheless, as the years ticked on, he continued to be the spine of the defense, being as vocal as ever. An incident worth bringing up, which also showcases those high standards, came up between him and Alvaro Arbeloa. Late in the 08-09 season, Liverpool were leading West Brom by 2 goals, but almost conceded, with Arbeloa switching off late in the game. Carragher goes ballistic in his face, right in front of 40,000 fans. Xabi Alonso and Daniel Agger had to intervene to separate them. Now, Liverpool had already won the game. They were not in the title race anymore after a hard-fought season. The only thing left to play for was Pepe Reina's Golden Glove. That was the reason behind this outburst. Standards, Jamie Carragher's, were high. On an England front, Carragher was never truly appreciated. To be completely honest, he wasn't anywhere as good as the other centre-backs in the selection. With only 38 appearances across his career, he retired from the national side in 2007 at only 29. Now, he did make a brief return at the request of Fabio Capello for the 2010 World Cup, but that was it. Injury, age, and time eventually caught up. And by 2012, Carragher was mostly benched. And by 2013, his race was ran. 737 matches for Liverpool, the second highest, 2 FA Cups, 1 UEFA Cup, and a Champions League. 1 city, 1 club, legend. Today, Carragher is one of football's top analysts. Sky Sports, CBS, The Telegraph. His partnership with Gary Neville is now iconic. Once rivals, now friends. Seemingly. Same goes for his partnership with Thierry Henry, Mika Richards, and Kate Abdo on what is undoubtedly the best football panel in the business at the moment. He does tend to do the usual thing by former players of being overly critical of his former club and almost overly complimentary of his traditional rivals. I don't always agree with what he says, but he's undoubtedly incredible at his job. He's not perfect, and he'd probably be the first to say so. In March 2018, while driving home after working as a Sky Sports pundit at a Manchester United vs Liverpool match, Carragher was spotted by a spectator on the road. Now, Liverpool lost 2-1. The man, a Manchester United fan, was incessant with the taunts. In another moment of head loss, Carragher spat at the man, only to miss and hit his 14-year-old daughter in the passenger seat. Of course, there was a media frenzy after this, as Carragher was suspended from Sky as well as many other networks. The family and the daughter did eventually forgive him, and he was reinstated to all of his former posts. But the video, unfortunately, still exists, and the scar, reputationally, remains. To wrap this one up, let's talk about legacy. Was Jamie Carragher elite? Now, Carragher undoubtedly is a Liverpool legend and boasts a career to show it. 11 major trophies, 3 Club Player of the Season awards, vice-captain for nearly a decade at a club the size of Liverpool is crazy. In a team that consistently evolved, he outlasted almost everyone. It's common that these days you might hear people dismiss his impact on the game due to the talent that was available while he was a player and the fact that, he never won the Premier League. They're fair critiques, The truth is that, as I've consistently said throughout the video, he was never the best player in his position, nor did he play for the best team. He wasn't the best ball-playing defender of his generation, that was probably Rio Ferdinand. He wasn't the best in the air, that was probably John Terry. He wasn't the most athletic, most likely Sol Campbell. But Carragher, he was arguably the most relentless and comfortably stands in the same conversation as all of the above. And I think that counts for something.